Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Live with Lenny. Let's talk about how, when, and where to enjoy action on both yellow and white perch during the runs of 2022, and learn the latest about what we are hearing from anglers testing the waters right now. Added bonus, during this week's episode we will disclose a top secret lure tip we've never talked about before. This episode is presented by Annapolis Yacht Sales.
Hey!
Hey there.
What's happening?
Not much. How you doing, Zach?
How have you been this past month? I don't think I've seen you.
Well, you've probably been too busy pickerel fishing.
I've only fished 4 days this year, but the last 3 last weekend were just phenomenal pickerel fishing. I caught 6 citations, including a personal best of 26.75, which was I think the same fish as Eric Packard caught about a month ago. Same location, same spot. Anyway, and congrats to Eric for second place overall in the CCA Pickerel Championship and first place in the longest fish caught by kayak. But I should also mention congrats to Chase Savage. 3 27-plus inch pickerel. 2 years in a row. He's quite the angler.
Yeah, that's just unheard of. Plus, he had biggest pickerel or biggest perch and biggest crappie.
Oh wow, I didn't see the Calcutta results. That's congrats, Chase. That's awesome.
He ran away with it, but I still can't fathom how Eric managed to get second and biggest kayak, considering how rarely he fishes.
They extended the tournament through November 1st this year, so that gave him 120 days to fish the tournament, I believe. So.
Which he probably fished 119.
I think that's correct because there was Christmas in there. Right?
Actually, I do know for a fact that he didn't always fish for pickerel because he went perch fishing with me one day recently, which would have been fabulous, except that we did not catch any perch. And, that is sometimes the way it goes with perch fishing. We're going to talk about that in just a minute.
Gotcha. Well, before we get things started, just want to thank our sponsor for this evening. It's Annapolis Yacht Sales. And correct me if I'm wrong, but last fall you got the opportunity to step aboard one of their the new hulls that they're now carrying. Yeah,
they're carrying Stamus.
Awesome.
They're carrying Stamus, which is really cool because years ago I used to love the Stamuses. We would see them all the time, and they pared back their operations on the dealer end, and they were only selling factory direct for quite some time, and they changed that up. Annapolis Yacht Sales got a hold of them. I don't know how, but I'm glad they did because Stamus builds a really cool fish boat, and their fish boats, make no mistake about it. That's I think one of the most beautiful things about them is the fact that they're no nonsense, let's go fishing, and they built a stout boat.
Gotcha. Well, I have here the latest edition of Fish Talk magazine, and I haven't seen this one in person, but there's a beautiful Stamus 33P Aventura. But I happen to know that on fishtalkmag.com there's an exclusive, boat review with Lenny Rudo of the 370 Aegean. Is that correct?
That is correct. With a video. There it is.
So if you pop on over, check out the video. Lenny got the opportunity to jump on that boat last fall and check it out. I think
we did, and it was a great boat ride. And interesting little fun fact, it had the twin Suzuki 350s on the transom. And a boat like that, in a lot of cases would be kind of tough to maneuver. And we had to squeeze that guy into the tightest little slip in the marina. It was not easy at all. But with the twin props on the 350s, you really can feel the difference. You can oppose those engines, and they got a lot of grunt, they got a lot of oomph, and they move that big 37-foot boat around. Love the rig. Just love the rig.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, well, hop on over to Fish Talk Mag, of course, after this program, and check out that video.
Yeah, for now, let's get to perch. But wait, we have one more thing we got to talk about before we go to perch, because we will have a winner tonight. We do have a prize. Wayne has generously donated another of his books to a lucky winner who will pick at the end of the evening. Feel free to pop your questions into the comment box, and as you do so, Zach will put the name of all the questioners into the amazing, shocking Wheel of Fortune spinny wheel. And at the end of the evening, somebody will win a copy of Wayne's book. And just want to mention also, at the St. Mary's Fairgrounds, March, I'm going to look at this so I don't get it wrong. March 19th and 20th. Wayne will be there. He'll be doing a seminar, and he'll be showing some images of some Southern Maryland fishing areas. I'll be there as well, and Eric Packard will be there as well. We'll all be talking during the event, and it should be kind of cool. So if you're not doing anything that weekend, swing on down to the St. Mary's County Fairgrounds.
Awesome. And I just want to reiterate what Lenny said. So just anyone asking questions will qualify to be entered in the Wheel of Destiny to win the Wayne book. So just standard comments aren't really going to go into that pool. So ask your questions, and then you'll get entered in there. Now, if you don't win the book, you can pick up Fish Talk, and every month we have an article from Wayne. This one's a towering ocean reef. So every month you can read some of Wayne's insights on Chesapeake Bay Fishing Reefs. Also, like his Facebook page, Chesapeake Bay Fishing Reefs. All right.
Absolutely. Are we ready? Let's go. Let's go perch fishing. It is time, people. It is time for perch fishing.
All right. Well, I'm gonna slide behind the curtain here and get started.
And you can pop slide number 1 right up. And I'm going to tell you, people. I promised we would give away a special little fishing tip that we've not talked about before during this episode, and we will. It's coming up. But even with that said, slide number 1 here is the most important slide of the night. Look at the difference between the top fish and the bottom fish. When you catch a perch, please, please, please look at your fish. See if it's a top fish or a bottom fish. What I'm looking at here is the belly. Bottom fish, it's skinny. It's long and skinny. That's a male. Or maybe a post-spawn female. Top fish has the big sagging belly. That is your female yellow perch that is on her way upriver to drop all those eggs and make gazillions of little baby yellow perch. I would never fault anybody for keeping a legal fish. And do I keep a big female yellow perch sometimes? Well, yeah, sure I do. If I'm having a tough bite and I've only got a couple fish and I want 3 for dinner, yeah, I'll put it in the box. It's not the end of the world. But a lot of times when you're perch fishing during the run, it's all you can handle. You catch one after the next, after the next, after the next. And in that scenario, you really want to let those big spawning fish go. You don't need to keep them, right? You can still get your dinner without keeping them. You might as well just keep the big males. And particularly on those days when you're just catching one fish after the next, let the females go. What I like to do, and I have it kind of easy in this regard. It'll be a little tougher for some other people, particularly shoreline fishermen. But I have a little live well in my boat. And when I'm perch fishing, I just always put the perch in the live well. And I start out that way. And if I get, let's say I want 3 for dinner. Let's say I get 3 in the well. After that, I'll only put, large males into the well. And if I'm catching lots and lots, I may fish through that well and try and get rid of a female or 2 I kept earlier. It's tougher if you're on the shoreline or if you have a boat that doesn't have a live well, but you can still do it with a bucket, And especially after you get your first couple fish in the bag, you're good. You're not going home empty-handed. It really is a good idea to think about letting those females go. All right. Sorry, people. Speech is over. We can go on to actually fishing now. Zach, go ahead and take us to the next slide, if you would, please.
Sure thing. Actually, and just our friend Stephen Camboris. That's right. Keep the big males. Let those big breeder females go. Also, Lenny, we had a guy, Dave McCarter, jumping in, and he was asking about the event in Salisbury. He misunderstood what you said.
Other side of the bridge. Southern Maryland on the western shore. It's in St. Mary's County at the St. Mary's County Fairgrounds. It's the Southern Maryland Fishing Club. They're on the western shore, located down towards the Salmon Zone.
And what date is that, Lenny?
March 19th and 20th.
Gotcha. And just since we're talking events, thanks for clarifying that for Dave. This weekend, I believe, is the Middle River Bass up in Essex. That's the fishing show coming up this weekend. Wow. So, all right. Sorry for that. Just wanted to clarify for Dave.
Absolutely.
And Eric Packard just wanted everyone to know he only fished 35 days in the CCA.
Wait, fish 35 days or fish 35 days for pickerel? Because I have a hard time believing you only fish 35 days that whole stretch, Eric. I'm saying that must have been for pickerel. He'll chime in and let us know.
He will. He will.
But he does. That guy fishes more than anybody I know, and that includes myself.
All right, here comes slide number 2.
Gosh, those are pretty fish, aren't they? There's hardly a prettier fish around, especially in Maryland. But I mean, anywhere. Look at those fins. Gorgeous fish. Slide number 2 has eventually gone MIA. Here we go. All right, so there's my lovely daughter Molly, who also happens to be our fishing reports editor, holding up a yellow perch from, I think that was the year before last. I believe that's in the chop tank. And I wanted to pop this slide up because what you see there is a bottom rig with minnows. That's kind of the old standby. It's effective. During the actual perch run, I do like to switch over to some other stuff, but early in the season, particularly when the fish are holding deep, bottom rig is really the way to go. You see the minnow. I always start off with the minnow, but that is not necessarily the only bait that I'll use for the perch. It's just that is what I'll use for the perch early on, and later on it's going to switch, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But go ahead and put up the next slide, because alongside the bottom rig option, we have the shad dart option. And the shad dart option, it's a little more fun to fish because you can put it on a super light rig. Just use like 4-pound test, 6-pound test, put it on ultralight. Take your shad dart. You're going to tip it with, sorry.
Sorry.
Holy mackerel. You're mixing me up, Zach.
Sorry about that.
We went from one slide to the next, lickety split. In any case, you're going to tip that shad dart with either a bull minnow or a grass shrimp, or maybe something secret we'll talk about in a minute. But in any case, obviously they come in all colors and sizes. You do want to have a variety. There will be days when one color is better than another. You need the different sizes because depending on tidal flow, current, how high the water levels are, you might need a little more weight to be able to feel the bottom. And you want to be able to feel bottom with these. 90% of the time, you're going to catch your perch right off the bottom. You're going to toss out that dart. You're going to let it sink to bottom. And then you're going to just hop it along, give it a couple little jiggles at the tip to give it a little bit of action, and just slowly move it along. Now we can go to the next slide, Zach.
Hey, I have a question.
Oh, well, go for it.
If you had to pick one color, what would you go with? What is your personal favorite?
So I love the pink and white, number 2 there. I also love the lime and black, number 3. But I got to say, my number 1 pick actually isn't even pictured here. It's the pinky. That bubblegum pink shad dart is, I mean, it just rocks sometimes.
Awesome. All right.
So the slide that popped up and then disappeared and is coming back up now shows you your other bait option, which is going to be, drum roll please. Here we go. The grass shrimp. You see him up top. You can see the fish on the bottom has a bull minnow hanging out of his mouth. I meant to mention, by the way, I forgot. When you tip your shad dart with your bull minnow, make sure you go in through the bottom lip and out through the top. That's how you want to do that. Now with the grass shrimp, if you have big ones, just stick one on the hook. You can put it through at the head. You can put it through at the tail. Both ways work. If you got little teeny shrimp, I'll stack them on there. 2, maybe sometimes even 3, depending. But you want to, make it a visible offering. Now, the grass shrimp steadily throughout the run will increase in effectiveness. This goes for yellow perch. It'll steadily increase in effectiveness while the effectiveness of the minnow just kind of slowly decreases. It's kind of impossible to say exactly when that's going to happen. The run changes every year, but you want to be aware of that. Most of the time when I go perch fishing, I'm carrying both. Until the day when the grass shrimp kills it and the minnow don't do much, and I say, okay, I don't need to grab the minnow anymore. Now, once the white perch start coming in, it's really going to be a game of grass shrimp. Early on, for some weird reason, they seem to like night crawlers sometimes. But as a general rule of thumb, the white perch you're going to do best with on the grass shrimp. And there will be days particularly in the tidal ponds when it's grass shrimp or it's nothing. You just got to have grass shrimp. Speaking of tidal ponds, Zach, do we have that link ready to throw up here? Because we have a feature on fishing for white perch in the tidal ponds. There it is. It's a little different than fishing for them up the rivers. Not incredibly different, but it is different. So if you want to get in on that action, be sure to check out this feature. If we can keep up with the links for a minute, Zach, I forgot to mention, we also have a yellow perch specific feature, Maryland Yellow Perch Perchapalooza, which folks can go out and check out on the website at any time. And that really digs into the whole, beginning to end yellow perch thing, which, we've talked about it before. That's one of the reasons I wanted to try and cover yellows and whites tonight and kind of, broaden it out a little bit, cover the spectrum. But in the meantime, if you want to target one or the other in those scenarios, be sure to check those out. Woo, excuse me. All right. Are we ready to disclose the secret? Our secret tip of the night. Ready, Zach?
I've been waiting. I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Go ahead and make me big. And I am going to reach around behind me here to the rack. I intentionally did not pre-prep this because I wanted everyone to see this is really, I swear to God, this is truly what I do. It's something I do. And my rod, I didn't touch it since my last trip. I'm going to go get it now. So it's right here. Oh, wrong way. Right here. All right. Here's the rod. We got 8-pound braid tipped off with 6-pound test mono. And lo and behold, guess what's on there, Zach? What color?
Pink.
There's your pink guy. That's what I was using last time. Now, here's the thing. Usually you can get minnow at the tackle shop, but some guys don't have a tackle shop close by where they can get one. Usually you can get grass shrimp at the tackle shop. The last time I went by, they were out. You can't always get your grass shrimp. So there's one thing, there's a fail-safe mechanism that I always keep in my tackle box. This guy right here. It's on the next slide. Can we put the slide up a little? We don't even need, there we go. Okay. Gulp Alive, right there. And it's your teeny tiny little itty bitty minnow gulp. Now, they're still too big for what we're doing. Okay, so here's what I do. This is what I do with this. I open it up, being very careful not to spill it, especially in the car, or you'll regret it. And then I fish out one of these little doodads right here. And I put the cap back on before I do anything else to avert a gulp disaster. Okay. And then, now you could fish it like this. I think it's a little big. These things almost always have a set in them. They almost always curve one way or the other. Here's what I do. I pinch it about a ½ inch in, pinch with my thumbnail, and rip. Okay? I take the doodad in there and throw that away. Now I take the guy with the little wiggly tail with that curvature to it. Take my shad dart, and I hold it so the tail curves up, and I just put it through the end there so it sits on my dart like that, right there, right? And then the next thing I do is I sniff my fingers because that gulp smells so wild. How do they make that smell? I don't even know. And then I rub my hands on my pants to get the juice off my fingers. And I know my wife is not going to be happy when she does the laundry. But it's a price you pay for fishing with gulp, right? It's just a must. Okay, so here we got this guy. When you don't have your grass shrimp or your minnow, or you have one or the other and it's not working so good, take this guy out of your tackle box. Just buy one of these, put it in your tackle box, and forget about it, right? And then when that day comes, take it out, rig it just like that. You want to cast it out, let it hit bottom, lift your tip up pretty rapidly so your dart comes maybe 6-8 inches off the bottom, and then just jiggle your tip, ding, 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 ding. And this little tail just bounces. It gives this little bounce. And it looks really nice underwater, and the perch love it. They eat it up. There will be days when the grass shrimp would definitely outcatch them. There would be days when the minnow would definitely outcatch them. But they're pretty darn effective. And it's an excellent kind of fail-safe to keep in your tackle box for those days when you can't get the bait. Or Other crazy things happen sometimes too, right? I remember a day when my box of gray shrimp was sitting next to me on the boat, and it was actually a really sunny, warm day, and the gray shrimp kind of baked in the sun. And before I realized it, all my gray shrimp were baked. They were like pink and dried up and no good. And these would have come in really handy. Great thing to have. Final bit of advice: make sure you, sniff your fingers a few times afterwards, because that's a really wild. How do they make that stuff? That is so cool. All right, so that's
kind of a side note, but I love using the gulp for flounder. And last year, my container cracked in my tackle box in my truck, and it kind of took a little while to get that scent out. But I caught more fish, consequently, because I smelled like gulp every time I went fishing. So.
That stuff is like semi-permanent, right?
All right, speaking of artificial, though, I got some questions from Tim Lynch. Will the bloodworm fish bites work for yellow perch?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So bloodworms work sometimes, but not really incredibly well. They could be like a backup bait, but they're not a first choice in my book. I mean, I'm sure there are guys out there who'll disagree. And there are probably certain specific rivers where they may be more effective. But I have not found them to be the greatest. But I have never tried a piece of fish bites. And that might give a little wiggle as you pull it. Tim, I don't know the answer to that. I'd say that's a phenomenal experiment to try out. If you do it, please let me know. And I'm making a note. I might have to grab my bloodworm fish bites are in the big boat, but I might have to grab them out and give that a try one day. That's a heck of an interesting thought.
You could even split the tail. You could cut the bloodworm and give it a forked tail. I do that sometimes in the surf.
Yep. Once that stuff gets wet, it gets pretty wiggly too.
So, ready for another question?
Sure, bring them on.
It's sort of we sort of touched on it earlier, but I just wanted to bring that. That's Fred, our buddy Fred from the Annapolis Anglers.
Hey, Fred. So the answer there is absolutely. In fact, in that article, I mentioned the lake at Beverly Triton as an example, not as a place, everybody go there, but because it's indicative of these tidal ponds, which they're connected to the bay in some way, shape, or form, but they're actually like separate ponds too. That one is connected by like a couple of culverts. I mean, there's not much connection there. It does fill up with white perch. It's usually better a little bit later, like the end of March, into April. As far as I know, it doesn't get a yellow perch run. That's an all white perch run. And that's one of those all grass shrimp gigs. Like really early on, I've seen guys do well with night crawlers, but by well, I mean like a half a dozen big fish when no one else is catching anything. But when the run really gets going, it's grass shrimp. Grass shrimp under bobbers off the shoreline. Now, all that said, that spot's actually off limits this year. They and I just found this out too. I didn't even know. They evidently closed down the parking lot. They're doing all kinds of construction there, and you can no longer park there and walk in. So I believe, man, I saw it. I think they said like in the fall, like in October, that's expected to be done. So Beverly Triton Perch Run is kind of off.
So, Lenny, there's another pond over there that's the pond in Beverly Triton is Deep Pond, but there's a big pond over by Mayo Park. Is that accessible to the public?
So, kind of. The only legal parking there is on days when the park is open. They do wacky things down there. They change it around all the time. I'm not even sure when you can park there. I would suggest going to the website and seeing when there's an open park day. It's not like open every weekend. There's certain weekends it's open. There's certain days it's not. And when it's not open, there's just nowhere to park. Neighborhood residents walk in. My kids used to walk down there all the time. They did catch perch from the bridge right there. However, I tried it twice last year and I never caught any. And I guess I just missed it. But, this is one of the quirks of the perch run. It is red hot or it is ice cold. It's, there are days when you get a few, but not many, but they're unusual. Really, the rule is like you hit the run good and you just catch them hand over fist, or you get there and they're not doing it. And it might be that they haven't arrived yet, they've come and gone, you're in between waves, or it can be tidal. They shut down on the tide. Excuse me. This past weekend, I think it was Sunday, I went to the Patuxent near Jug Bay, which is a good spot for both yellows and whites. And I slept in. I went late. I was lazy. I got there at like 10:30 and talked to all the guys fishing there, as we were launching. And then once we got to the first big hole, there were 3 boats at. And everybody kind of said the same thing. They were like, yeah, they were biting earlier in the morning, but they just shut off. And we had an incoming tide. And I fished probably, 3-4 hours through the incoming tide and didn't catch a single perch. And they hadn't done great in the morning, They caught a few here and a few there. Guys had some catfish. But while I was there was just nothing going on. And that's not unusual for perch fishing. If you go perch fishing and you don't catch a darn thing, that should not discourage you from going back to the same place a day or two later, because it can be a whole different ballgame, like completely different. Speaking of the packs, why don't you put up this next slide? Because that is from last year on the packs. And we did have some really good perch fishing there last year. I think personally I went there 4 times and did pretty darn good each time. I did have one time when it took a while to find them. We had to move around a lot, but we did pretty good. Before I forget, I'm going to mention one other thing too. Here's another part of the secret fishing tip. When you're done fishing, make darn sure you rip that little tail off your shad dart before you stow it, because this thing, when it dries out, turns hard as a rock. I mean, you'll literally bend the hook trying to get it off. It'll be a loss. You'll have to cut off your shad dart. So make sure you rip this thing and throw it away before you hang up that dart, which I'm going to do right now before I hook myself. And I'll put that back on the rack later. All right. All right, can we get that next slide up? Oh, wait, we got another question. Tons of ticks and bear. Oh my God, that's so true. After I find one on me, I stop going there. But in late March and early April, they're not out yet. So it's really not a big deal yet. Last year, Zach, you came down there, or was that the year before last? We both fished it a couple times. And I don't think I ever got a tick on me. Now, I did stop going there as soon as it really started to warm up. But that's totally true. The ticks there are outrageous.
So quite a few more questions. And I just want to reiterate, if anyone's just tuning in, comments in the form of questions will enter you into a drawing for a book by Wayne Young. So just bear that in mind as we continue the program. So, Lenny, ton of questions. You want to catch up on some questions?
Yeah, sure. Roll them on through.
All right. So we're talking a lot about baits. So let's. Donald Jones has asked if you ever try a Mep spinner for the spring.
Yeah, for sure, and it'll catch fish. You'll catch fish on it, absolutely. Will you catch more using a dart with a grass shrimp? I'd be willing to take on that challenge without hesitation. Early in the run, like right now, today, I wouldn't even throw the Meps today. Right now, the fish are still on the chilly side, right? The live bait really helps when it's still pretty cold. Once they warm up, they'll start going more. Once the run's really on and they're hitting good, you can use a little tube jig, you can use a little twister, you can use a lot of stuff. Actually, the next slide has another thing you can use. There's a lot of stuff you can use. But I'm a strong believer in kind of whenever I go fishing, going arm for bear, right? If they're only hitting minnow, I want to have minnow. If they're only hitting grass shrimp, I want to have grass shrimp. If they're going to hit Meps, okay, but I'm going to have all that stuff with me, and I'm going to be trying different stuff and, hopefully catching fish. So, they'll work, but, I would use them later in the season, and I kind of wouldn't count on them.
Okay. Couple more. I'm going to try to cycle these questions in order of relevance. So, Kevin Tong is asking, what depths do they hold this time of year?
So this is the transition time, right? Up until now, they've been holding in, the deep holes, 12, 15, 18, 20 feet, depending on, what river you're Right now, they're starting to push shallower. Now they're going up the rivers. At the peak of the run, way up the rivers, you'll be catching them in 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water. That's that is changing as we speak. As we speak, I can tell you during February, you're you're staying deep, but now you're starting to move shallower.
All right, so thank you, Kevin. We have another Kevin, our buddy Kevin McMenamin.
Hey, Kevin.
What style bobber do you like to use to keep a minnow dart combo suspended instead of on the bottom?
So for much of the run, I like to work the bottom. I don't go to the bobber. There are times when the bobber starts really happening, including in the salt ponds, and also later in the run when the fish are pushing up into the shallower water. They can be very effective. My general rule with a bobber is as small as I can get away with without it sinking from the weight of the dart. So I'll use a little teeny one. I don't generally use the big quills that I use for the pickerel fishing. Oh, hold on a minute. We're gonna do a little show and tell. I got them right here. My bag's right over here. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna be right back. Okay. So like if I'm pickerel fishing, I'm using the big quill bobber, right? Because this gives you the wobble, and the wobble's great. When it comes to perch fishing, I'm going down to like this little guy, maybe this guy, and particularly with the grass shrimp, the minnow will give you some action. You don't really have to work it, but particularly with the grass shrimp, I'll be jigging that bobber in a way. I'll be pounding on the line a little bit to make it wiggle 5, 6, 8 times, and then pause. Wiggle 5, 6, 8 times, and then pause. And sometimes in some of those tidal ponds, it's best to actually sort of cast and retrieve, but you don't just reel it back. You jiggle it back.
All right, thank you. So you kind of covered it, but I'm just gonna, Jason asked a question, so he said, "How about a float with a jig head, curly tail?" So yeah, you kind of already addressed that.
Yeah, same deal. And again, there will be days when the curly tail will catch plenty of fish, but man, I'd hate to be sitting there fishing the plastic right next to the guy with the grass shrimp and watch him catch all the fish. And that will happen. There are days that will happen.
All right. So David Hall.
Can't resist. Yeah, totally, David. Totally. You do not. This is actually a great fishery for this. A lot of the spots, and we detail them in that Maryland Yellow Perch Perchapalooza article. A lot of these hot spots, they're total walk-ins. Like some of them you couldn't put a boat there if you wanted. Red Bridges, you couldn't put a boat in there if you wanted. That's all walking. Greensboro, Hillsboro, plenty of shoreline access. It'll get crowded. During the heat of the run, it'll get crowded. I went by Hillsboro 10 days ago, which is kind of pre-run, right? It's like really early, and there were 6 or 8 people fishing already. So they'll get crowded, but there's plenty of spots you can walk into, tons. What do we got here? Any spots on the eastern shore you favor over others for the perch bite? Well, yeah. So super early on, Pocomoke is a haul, but man, super early on, it's awesome. The Nanticoke has been coming on good. My personal favorite for a long time was Martineck State Park, which is on Watts Creek off the Chop Tank. And that was my favorite because I had kids. And it has a pavilion built over the water, which is right on a great hole. So it was an awesome place to take the kids. I could take them there when it was raining or snowing or whatever, and the kids were fine. That's another park that's under construction right now. They have that closed off. So that's not going to work this spring. But that's one to, kind of file away in your head. Hillsboro is an awesome spot. It's like a party atmosphere. When you go there during the run, everybody's out there having a good time. There are tons of fish to be caught. Hillsboro is a really fun place to go perch fishing. It's really very cool. You can just pull over on the side of the road right down from the bridge, as everybody does, and it's very nice. It's a great atmosphere. Red Bridges, that's the upper chop tank, is a really beautiful spot. That one also can get crowded, usually just during the height of the run. And it's not terrible or anything, but it's just a really pretty spot. You're walking through the woods and here's the river, headwaters of the chop tank. See what other Eastern Shore, the Tuckahoe. I do like launching at Hillsborough and going down the Tuckahoe. That's some beautiful territory. I'm going to hold off on saying any more about that because we have some stuff coming up in the slides that's going to directly relate to that. So hold tight for that.
All right, real quick, one more for the Eastern Shore, and then we have some Western Shore stuff. But just since we got Tommy Robinson suggests Millington, Mark Breger, the pavilion at Martinac is open.
What?
We'll have to look into that.
The website says it's still closed. I checked it. Before going fishing last week. Wow.
So Vince just moved to Delaware, and he has a Maryland license. What about the Nanticoke?
Nanticoke is good. Yeah, actually, that's where some of the best reports have been coming from last week.
Cool. All right, we still have a ton of questions. I'm trying to sort of keep them relevant. So why don't we move on and we'll touch back on them a little bit.
Okay, that's probably good because we're going to get in a little bit into the East versus West here.
All right.
In the next couple slides. Go ahead and pitch up that next one. All right, so this is what I was talking about. The other lures. That's a marabou jig. It's a chartreuse and white marabou jig. Always thought of as a crappie lure, right? That's something using fresh water. Guess what? Works great on these perch too. This picture was taken on the Patuxent near Jug Bay, a little bit upriver from Jug Bay. And like I said, I hit that a lot last year. It was pretty darn good for me. And that size perch right there, which, it's not a monster, but it's a decent white perch. That's kind of what I was catching most of the time. Go ahead and take us to the next one, Zach. This gets into some specific locational details. This is from the Tuckahoe. This is downriver from Hillsborough. And the critical item in this picture is the tree laying in the water. And this is something you're going to see a lot more on the east side than you will on the west side, right? On the west side, you've mostly got houses. On the east side, you got woods. You got these, deadfall sitting in the water. So a couple critical things to remember about this deadfall. The first is you can be looking at a river like the Tuckahoe and see these as far as the eye goes. You see 30 of them over the next half mile of shoreline. It's not uncommon. What you're going to discover is only like one or two hold fish, and they all look beautiful, but for whatever reason, the way the current goes by, the depth there, whatever, almost without fail, it'll be no fish, no fish, no fish, all the fish on this one tree. So when you're in a scenario like that, when you're at one of these Eastern Shore rivers and you see all these trees laying in the water, don't sit there and cast at one all day. You want to move. You want to move, keep moving till you get a bite, catch a fish, and then focus your efforts, okay? And this is the second thing about them. A lot of times these fish will be really tight in that timber and they won't move an inch. This particular day, we caught them by anchoring the boat, casting towards the tree branches, and then retrieving. And we were catching just fine. I went there a week later, okay? 1 week later with a friend. Did exactly the same thing for like an hour, had like one bite and missed it. It wasn't happening. But there's a little trick you can use. And I said, before we leave, let's try this. I actually pulled the boat right up into those trees, took my dock line, looped it over a branch, tied it off. So the boat was literally floating in the trees. And we sat there for a couple minutes just to let it kind of quiet down, right? Because we know we spooked the fish. And then I took my rod, and I think I was fishing minnows still. Not sure. It might have been gray shrimp, but whatever. Took the rod, literally just held it out. Didn't even cast it. Just held it out and dropped straight down 5-6 feet of line and just jigged it right there in between the branches. Boom, caught a fish. My buddy did the same thing. Boom, caught a fish. Boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, we're talking limit catches. The fish were there. They were just sticking really tight inside of that tree. And because of the way the tree's oriented in the river, you really couldn't cast and retrieve that close to the tree. You would have just snagged a branch, right? But what did it was literally pulling the boat in, tying it off, and just dropping straight down. There's no casting involved. In fact, several times I would like set the hook and then just lift my rod tip, swing it into the boat. So if you're on one of the rivers and you see that scenario, give that a shot. All right, now go ahead to the next slide if you would. We're going to sort of we're going to reverse sides of the bay here. This is on the Magathie. This is on the west side. You don't have all these trees lying in the water, right? Because you've got mostly houses, waterfront houses on the shore. But what you got is piers. Interestingly, it's going to be a very similar scenario. You can cast to 50 piers and never catch a fish, and then get to one pier. Lo and behold, who knows why, for whatever reason, it's the pier the fish like. They're all going to be there. And this particular day, we knew this pier was here, so we didn't burn a whole lot of time on other spots. But after we left it, we did try a couple others, and we didn't catch much. This particular pier, we sat there and just wailed on them. Got a nice pickerel that day, too, as I recall.
And I could see a kayaker out there, too, to answer that.
That's right. There's a kayak in the background fishing on the next pier down. And this shoreline, there's actually 3 or 4 piers in a row that all are, pretty decent. So you can get a couple boats in there. But it's the same kind of scenario. You'll go through these long stretches where there's just no fish, and then all of a sudden, there they are. So again, if you're fishing the west side, stay on the move till you locate some fish and then work it. I have seen one thing that's a little different on the western shore. I haven't seen this on the eastern shore. The perch on the west side, particularly in the Magathie, they'll sometimes do these big circles through areas of the creek. And you'll catch the heck out of them on this one pier for like 45 minutes, and then they'll slowly peter out, and then you just kind of stop catching them. And then you'll fish 5 other piers and find them somewhere else and catch them for a little while. And then an hour later, you can go back to the first pier, and you might start catching them all over again. And they just kind of seem to meander around more than they do in the east side rivers. Maybe because there's less current right there. I don't know exactly, but they do seem to do that a little more on the west side. All right, what's our next slide? I think I recognize the character in this next slide. Pretty sure. You recognize him, Zach?
Yeah, I do. The Perch Slayer himself.
There it is. So this was doing the salt pond thing. This was grass shrimp under bobbers. And we hit this several times. This is the Triton pond. We hit this several times. And as I recall, it was the jiggle. Weren't we doing the bobber jiggle? Cast out, jiggle, jiggle, jiggle?
Yeah.
Yep.
And but generally we didn't need to.
Well, that's true. We had a couple trips there where basically your bobber hit the water and you're like, okay, let me try and get in 2 breaths before it goes under. Now, interestingly, it did depend on your spots. Remember, we had this killer little spot right there, and there were some people down the bank who were not catching nearly as many fish. And it had nothing to do with anyone being better fishermen. It was purely the spot. At these salt ponds, you do want to walk the shoreline. You do want to try different spots, unless you know, right? Sometimes you fished a spot over and over again. You kind of know where it is.
This one was between 2 points with some grasses, so it kind of had, a nice little habitat.
Stealing my thunder! It was the edge. It was the edge of the grass, right?
I think so.
It was like the edge of the grass line. I was about to say, you cast it out, and when you were right along the edge of that grass line, you got your bites. So again, I would encourage everybody to go read that article if you want to get in on this fishery. It's a really fun fishery, and I forget who mentioned it earlier, but it's totally true. The ticks come out in these areas, and this spring perch run, you can get in some fun before that happens. I went to this particular pond one day with my wife, and we had a great time. And she said, "I'm going to come back here and go hiking." And like 3 weeks later, she did, and then she came home and she was like, "Well, never doing that again." Because of the whole tick thing. So,
and I'd like to offer a tip. I scoop my grass shrimp from boat ramps. You just
Isn't it strange how they like boat ramps?
I would go to Truxton Park and I would just walk down the pier and I scoop them up.
I don't know. I don't know why do they like boat ramps so much?
All that structure and just
Our neighborhood boat ramp. I'll go down there and you could walk around, wade in and go all around there and maybe catch 5 grass shrimp, and then you go to the ramp itself, run your net down the side of it, and you come up with 30.
Yeah. There's no grass. Very weird. So just want to touch back. Tommy, who lives right up there by Fishbones, he's up in the Magathie territory. So fishing beyond the bridge is closed through April. So that's good.
Thank you for that, Tommy. Thank you for that. I wonder if that's a result of the damage that was done to that run. Last year, I think there was a big environmental concern, as I recall. You remember what I'm talking about, Zach?
Yeah. There was like some construction runoff, and the Magathie River keepers found all these eggs just destroyed. It was pretty sad to see.
Yeah, I remember they said they actually had like evidence that it like messed up the run. So I wonder if they shut that down because of that. If it was shut down prior to, I wasn't aware of it. It's not impossible. Usually by the time we get to April, I'm headed elsewhere. But that's interesting. I wonder if that's A, I wonder if that's what that was about, and B, I hope it helps.
Yeah.
Magathie is one of the last remaining good yellow perch runs in the Middle Bay Western Shore zone.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I got a whole list of questions, but do you want to keep moving? We're at about 5:45. I got nowhere to be. I'm going to be at this.
Tell you what, let's blast through the last slides because they're on current events. They're what's going on right now, and then we'll go right to the questions. We're gonna lightning round these. So this was 10 days ago at Red Bridges. I did not catch a single perch. Did not talk to anybody who caught a perch there. We talked to some folks at Hillsborough who had caught them a couple days prior. It was not a hot bite, but they had caught a few. That tells me that here 10 days later, it's definitely time to be there. And plus, I also wanted to put that in because I think it's the biggest fall fish I've ever caught.
It's a big fall fish.
It's a monster fall fish. We actually caught 5 fall fish and a couple pickerel. I've never caught that many fall fish in a single day, but this guy was like a monster. All right, go ahead and you can just zing it on to the next one. The next one is a reader report that came in late last week. Excuse me. As you can see, that is a big, beautiful yellow perch. Nanticoke was the river. So, and we had a couple reader reports coming from the Nanticoke saying they were on. So that was what, basically a week ago. So definitely on. The timing is right. Go ahead, zing us to the next one. This one's going to come from up the bay, up at the Perryville area. This is Cindy. She outfished David yet again and caught several yellows. They had a pretty good February up there. There were some down days, there were some up days, as there always will be. Again, nature of the beast. Some days you kill them, some days you don't. They had some cloudy water for a while that mucked things up a little bit, but it should have calmed down nicely. And I would expect those fish to be moving upriver now, but still to be around in good supply. So that zone should also be another good bet right about now. All right, I just wanted to hit those real quick. Of course, we have new reports coming out tomorrow at noon. If you haven't gone to fishtalkmag.com and put your email in there to get the email when the reports come out, don't forget to do so. And we'll get you the latest. Molly collects the reports, but I get a lot of reader reports too. And I will say that one other thing I've noticed is in the last week to 10 days, these reports have really started picking up. Oh, there we go. Perryville. Okay, excellent. Yeah, it's on. It's time. Hillsborough yesterday, there were no yellow perch people there for hours without a bite. That's a bummer. It does have this. That's like what I've been saying. You have days like that. When a week ago, there were guys who caught fish on Monday and then didn't have a bite on Wednesday. Nature of the beast. It's not necessarily that the fish aren't there. These fish, a couple things. One thing is they change on the tides. The bite at these spots can be very tidally oriented. I like an outgoing or low tide, dead low. I generally find to be great. The end of an outgoing is great. When you get a real high flood tide, often they just it doesn't happen. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. So the one thing is they're tidally oriented. The second thing is these fish move in waves. They come, they go. A bunch of yellow perch push up the river. A bunch is behind them. You can get there right in between them. It's the nature of the beast. How far upriver do they go to spawn? Like all the way to the fall line. That spot at Red Bridges, you can literally see like the little mini fall line where there is no more tidal influence whatsoever. And Zach, you correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I don't think you ever see the yellow perch jumping up through the rapids to get up into the fresher freshwater. Right? Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
I've never seen it. I wondered when I was standing there one day, like, how cool would that be to see? But they're not salmon. They're not going that far upriver. They're just going about that far, very edge of the tide line. Excuse me. And that's where they're doing their thing.
Cool. So, we had a couple water temp questions. Let's see here. So we got Herb Floyd. I know him and Eric have become acquaintances, and congrats, Herb. You caught some big fish in the pickerel tournament, I believe. I'm not sure if the Calcutta's in, but I think he might have a shot at the slam. I'm not sure. So, particular water temp that triggers the spawn?
Yeah, so I'm sure there is. I can't tell you exactly what it is because I tend to go for these fish from pre-spawn through the spawn. So in February, I'm fishing the holes. In March, I'm moving upriver. In April, early April, I'm way upriver, or maybe then shifting back down to try and catch them on the way out. Up by the time the water temperature is hitting 50, you can bet that these fish are moving. There's another one with them. See, I don't look for the temps. I try and follow the fish, and this has been changing. It's been changing. When I was a kid, April was perch month. Like March, you didn't even really think about finding them during the run. You could still go into these holes and catch them in pre-spawn areas, but you didn't even think about fishing for them. Lately, I remember it was your dad, Zach, who was catching yellows on the spawning grounds in February, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago. He's going over soon, but I haven't got a report, so he hasn't gone yet, but he's gonna head over soon.
So and it hasn't been as warm as it was for that winter, right?
That was a really warm winter. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, really warm winter. But my point being, the fish's patterns are not what they were 30 years ago. It's just different. If it's warm, they're going.
So we talked a little bit about the Western Shore, and we had a couple questions about Allen's Fresh. I know Eric Packard fishes there, but
he was there about a week, maybe a week ago, and I don't think he did any good. I'll let him chime in. I think he's still on. Eric, if you want to, throw some advice that way. Allen's Fresh, I have not fished since, it's probably been 25 years. Now, when I was in school at St. Mary's, that was close by. That was a place we went, but I haven't been there in a long time. There's another Allen's Fresh question. I know Eric did have some good days down there last year. I also know that some of the areas down there are not what they used to be. We used to go to Nanjamoy all the time, too. And that was the best yellow perch fishing I'd ever seen. This I'm going back to when I was in my 20s now. It was off the hook, insane yellow perch fishing. And through the years, I went back, every so often, and it never seemed to be as good. And it seemed to get worse and worse. And I thought maybe I was just having those days where, you arrive there and you missed them or the tide's off. I thought I was just having days like that. But then actually this winter, I talked to some folks who fish down there regular, and they said, nah, the Nanjamoy run has just kind of really declined in a big way. So I don't know about Allen's Fresh. Hopefully Eric will chime in. But like I said, I haven't fished there in a couple of decades. It did. It used to be great.
All right. Well, how about the Potomac?
Well, that's an interesting question. They must. They're in all the creeks off the Potomac. I mean, Madwoman gets a run. Port Tobacco used to get a run. You know, they all get runs on those creeks. I've never heard of anyone fishing them in the Potomac main stem, like up towards Fletcher's. That's where I would expect, you would find them. You ever heard of that, Zach?
Not too many reports from. No, not really.
I've never heard of that. I do not know, Jeff. I do not know. But it's something I would honestly, I would have to think if there was a strong perch run there, I would have heard about that at some point.
I mean, Packard was telling me about, walleye at Chainbridge. So it's like you hear about other stuff. You don't really hear a lot of perch. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we're talking about locations. Tim wants to know east side, west side, upper bay, middle. Is it all pretty much the same? But it's
kind of, but it's staggered. It is staggered. When the fish actually running, there's probably a week's difference from like the way southern eastern shore and the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, because they get a run. Oh, what's that river called? It's not the North River, the Northeast River. It's one of them. Their runs tend to be like a week ahead of the northern runs, but that's like as big a variation as you get. Like a week, maybe 10 days. The run will kind of clock behind it, but that's about it. East side, west side is going to be about the same.
So Eric chimed in here with. He heard someone was catching Allen's fresh, but wasn't catching until the 11th last year up in the creek a week earlier at the Ciders.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
And our good buddy Ian Rubin. Too much current past Fletchers for yellow perch. Strong white perch, though. They pack in the eddies and ambush minnows in early spring.
Oh, cool. Okay. Thank you, Ian.
All right. And so we're talking about locations. I'll just throw up a couple comments. Tommy again, Wasons and the stream off 3 up from Marlboro used to be money.
Yeah. That's like I was saying. That's kind of the zone that I fished a lot last year, and I think I'm going to fish a lot this year. It's close to home for me. And that's one. I should have mentioned at some point. Another thing that can totally shut this down is a big rainfall that muddies everything up. That can screw everything up. And that's a danger at all these places, but that Wason's Corner area is very susceptible to these mud washes.
So I think we got all the destination stuff. Now we can get into a few of the questions we had. Do you have time? Am I keeping you from supper?
Go on, man. Come on. Let's try and roll through these questions. Let's do it.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. One more location base. So we had Chesapeake Hunter asked, where are the Nanticoke? Up by Sharptown or down by Vienna or near the Marshy Hope?
Well, if you went up, the Marshy Hope is going to get its own little separate run going up. So definitely you can fish the Marshy Hope. At this point, I think I'd be going pretty far up, honestly. Nanticoke, it's going to be upriver, but I don't know exactly where. I have not fished that one in a long time either. Our reports that came in from the Nanticoke did not specify, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, But right now, pretty much all of these rivers, what you can do is you can look at where the channels, where the bends make holes, right? That last hole, as you work upriver, is going to be where those perch ball up. That's going to be where they stage prior to the spawn. Right now is when, as the spawn begins, the run begins, this is when they're pushing out of those holes and they're starting to move upriver. So I would look upriver. I'd look at a chart, look at depth, and look for the last of the big holes of the big bends and just start working upriver from there.
So we've got a couple white versus yellow questions. So Mark asked, do you catch white and yellow perch in the same spots?
Pretty much in most places. There are some exceptions. There's some spots that only get white runs, or some spots that only get yellow runs. Actually, Ian just mentioned that the whites go up there on the upper Potomac, but the yellows don't. But what's going to happen is first you get the yellows, then you get a mix, then you get the whites. And you can track these fish. Like if you want to catch yellows, you start early up upriver. You catch yellows until you start catching whites. Well, then if you go downriver, you can catch the yellows on their way back out again. It's a little tougher. Once they spawn, they tend to move out pretty quickly, but they move in waves. So you can get, you get some on the way in, you get some on the way out. You can get that mix of white and yellows usually for like, a couple of weeks. There's like a week or two of almost all yellow action. Then you start to pick up some whites. Then you get, a week or two of mixed action. And then you get a week or two of, just the whites.
Thank you. Again, so Ian had also a question of white versus yellow. Do they prefer different structure at all?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm trying to think if I found the whites as structure oriented as the yellows, and I'm not so sure I have. They kind of seem to be more scattered around. The yellows definitely like being in trees, stuff like that. But during this run, as they're moving up the rivers and moving down the rivers, often they're not really oriented to structure as much as they're just, they're on their way to spawn, then they're on their way back down. The yellows I've definitely noticed in the trees, and the whites I haven't. I never thought of that till you said that, Ian. Till you said that. I never even considered that, but that's actually kind of true. Do me a favor, people. If any of you guys have ever found these spawning run whites oriented to fallen trees, would you please let us know? Because now I'm curious as heck. There's every chance in the world that it's just something I've never discovered. I wonder if anybody else has.
So Cambo Trout wants to know, how many shad darts do you bring with you when fishing those trees? Because it looks like he's decorating for Christmas when he's done.
So true.
What is a good number? A dozen? Just bring a dozen?
A dozen is minimal, bare minimum. It's kind of funny. Because the first thing I think of is kind of at the beginning of every perch run, you go to the tackle shop and you buy a bunch of shad darts, right? Let's say you buy a dozen. You throw them in your box. You got a half a dozen, 10 in there already. By midway through the perch season, you're going back to the tackle shop. You're buying more shad darts.
And we have a supporter of Fish Talk, Tin Man Lures. He makes shad darts as well. Tin.
Oh my God. So wait. Hold the phone, because I forgot to mention this. When you want something big but light, you don't want the weight. These tin shad darts, if you want the big profile, look at the size of that shad dart. It's a good size shad dart, but it weighs like nothing because it's tin instead of lead. This is one of Tin Man's. I apologize. That was something I meant to mention. When you want the size, not the weight, that's the way to get it right there.
And then, and I believe those are available direct only. He's at a lot of shows, but he has an eBay store. That's where you pick those up.
Correct, eBay. So, like, as to how many shad darts I have in my tackle box, this is after one trip to the tackle shop. Look at this. A lot of shad darts. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee it, like within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to go back to the tackle shop and I'm going to buy a whole bunch more shad darts again. I guarantee it. It's a given.
Well, I really appreciate everybody's questions. A lot of great questions. Lenny, we got 3 more. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take any new questions. So at this point, we just got 3 more. This is from MJ Fishnut. Where do the yellows go after the spawn?
Man, mystery of the world right there. They definitely scatter out throughout the creeks and rivers. When I was a kid, our boat used to be on Bodkin Creek. We used to catch them around the piers on the creeks, here and there throughout the entire summer. I don't really see that happening much these days. White perch you certainly do, but the yellows, I don't know, man. They seem to scatter out, and I don't know if their numbers are lower than they were when I was a kid, or don't know how to honestly answer that.
Well, I got to say, every year I try to get out with my dad on the south. It's sort of my pastime, white perch fishing in the summer. And we caught like 3 dozen, Beards Creek, Gingerville Creek. We used to do Broad Creek a lot, but 1 yellow perch was in that mix. So it was just weird, it's just a weird Hey, so they're in there somewhere, but
Yeah. Well, the South's yellow perch population is definitely damaged, like in a big way.
So that's the question I was sort of waiting for till the end, but I didn't want all the doom and gloom, But so Mark said the yellow perch pre-spawn to spawn fishing has diminished for himself and many over the last 3 years. He typically fishes mid-shore bank spots. They become generally poor, except on random days from December to the March run. The run seems shorter and overall biomass seems less. He's been at fishing for 40 years, and the recent year trend seems down. Any thoughts? Water temps due to phases, environmental, predation from other species? Does it need bulk? So, do you have any insight on the decline, or is it just another cyclical fishery?
Generally speaking, I would agree with what he's saying. Now, they have definitely shifted earlier, and it took me some years to catch on. For a while there, in April, I was fishing the spots I always fished in April. In March, I was fishing the spots I always fished in March. In February, I was always fishing the spots I always fished in February. It took me a while to realize that the fish had changed the timing. Call it global warming, call it whatever the heck you want. I don't care. Bottom line is they had moved up. Everything had, moved up a pretty fair amount. But even still, I have to agree. The last, I don't even know if I'd say 3 years. I think I'd put it more like 5 to 10. The runs are not necessarily what they used to be. West Side got hit very hard by the construction of 97. When they built 97, that's what crushed the South, hurt the Severn, hurt the Magathie. The Severn and the Magathie bounced a little better than the South did, but we lost a big portion of our perch runs through that. Generally, I do agree that is the overall biomass less? I'm not a scientist. I can't say yes, but does it seem to me like it's yes? Well, yeah, it does. It does. Has it changed environmentally? Well, yeah, really seems like it has. Predation, I don't know about. We hear a lot about, the blue cats and the snakeheads eating the baby perch. I don't know if that's, having a big impact or not. Certainly having an impact. I would throw in there, everybody, please sign up for the invasive species count. CCA is doing this annually now. It's free to sign up, and you can win free prizes. You don't have to do a darn thing other than take a picture of the fish with your camera and send it to them. They're just trying to get a read on the population numbers for like the blue cats, the snakeheads, the flatheads, and they're looking for help from us, from the anglers, to just take a picture of the fish you caught. That's it. If you want to take a picture of the stomach contents, so much the better. They get more scientific information. But they're sharing this info with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with the DNR, and they're just trying to get a read on what kind of impact those fish are having on stuff like yellow perch. And I mentioned that in particular because I do recall seeing one of the stomach content photos. I think it was a blue cat. It had like 8 yellow perch in it. I mean, it was shocking. And that is bound to have an impact. And again, hey, you get to win prizes. Like, how cool is that? Every month they do a bunch of drawings. I actually won one last year. It's in my tackle box. I won a little snipper, one of those little snippers, but they're CCA snippers. So they're cooler than yours are, Zach.
I want to get that knife sharpener. That thing looks awesome.
Oh, I didn't see that.
There was a guy that won it, and he did a YouTube video, and he's sharpening his knife, and then he just slices through, a piece of paper with no effort. So,
wow,
it looks pretty cool. Yeah, they're like retail like $75. So if I don't win, I'll buy one. But I didn't fish enough for him last year.
I didn't have a ton of entries myself. I needed to have more.
Yeah, a couple guys chimed in just on blue catfish. Tommy suggests sedimentation and the creeks have less water in them. That's a possibility. So, anyway, my favorite question of the night. Thanks again, everybody, for just some amazing questions tonight. This one, sorry, Will. This one doesn't actually get you in the drawing because it's unrelated to the talk. You have to ask a question about the talk. But I think everybody's just on their toes here. They just want to know what's going on. There's a lot of questions. I can't even find it. Will Kenny said, "Did you sell your boat yet, Lenny?"
I still have the boat. I have a couple people coming to look one this weekend. I pulled all the ads on it and everything because I had some people lined up to look at it. We'll see if it goes away this weekend. The more important question is, will the new one get here in time for fishing season? That's the more important question.
You've got how many boats? You got 3 boats, whatever.
Well, yeah, but who's counting?
And he told me he's going to buy a pedal kayak. I mean,
Did I say that?
All right, my favorite question tonight, Matthew Hall. All right, drum roll, ready?
Ooh, favorite yellow perch recipe. Do you have one, Zach?
Just fried perch. Egg bath with. I like the Louisiana fry batter, but I'll tell you what. My dad. I grew up. That was a staple meal at our house, and I did the Angler's White Perch Open a couple years ago, and the second best perch I've ever had was fried by Mike Ebersberger, and he was using a Zatarain's mixed with some cayenne pepper and I think Old Bay. I can't remember. You have to stop by Anglers, ask Mike what his perch recipe is. But that perch at the fish fry at the Anglers White Perch Open was fantastic. So, yeah, my favorite's just fried perch with some potatoes, fried potatoes, How about you?
I'm 100% on the same page. When my kids were little, we would call them fish nuggets, right? Fish nugs.
Yeah.
And we made them all the time with perch and other stuff. But everybody loves the yellow perch fish nugs. And I do have my own little batter recipe, but it's nothing crazy, a little panko, a little cornmeal, little bit of Old Bay, a little bit of garlic, salt, that kind of thing. Mix it all up, do the dredge and the egg, just fry it up. Yellow perch is really phenomenal. And I will say it is my wife's very favorite fish to eat, bar none. Bar none. I'm always going back and forth. I can never decide. One week it's yellow perch. The next week, it's blue line tile. And then the week after that, it's snakehead. Who can tell? But it's her very favorite.
Well, sometimes I actually buy the chicken fried batter, which is interesting. Gives a little bit of like a fried chicken texture. It's very good. When in college, I remember I had a bunch of bluegills from Deep Creek. And I don't even remember what it was, but it was like that, like a sort of a liquid batter, and it turned out like a fish and chips almost, like it puffed up like a.
Isn't that a beer batter?
Like beer batter, like in English, yeah. I like to try that this summer, I think, because it's kind of interesting. So yeah, yep. It marks beer batter, nothing better. TJ Selby loves the Old Bay. Old Bay hot sauce is amazing. Lenny, have you had the Old Bay hot sauce as an Old Bay connoisseur?
I do have the Old Bay hot sauce. I haven't tried it yet. But I do have it. I have it in my kitchen right now.
Cynthia, I don't know who she is, but she says Zach fries the most delicious fish. So I believe that. I think
she ought to know. That's all I'm saying. She ought to know.
All right. Well, we're over a little bit, but we had a great crowd tonight. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back.
Spinny wheel.
Yeah.
I'm dying to see it. I love the wheel. Love the wheel.
The Wheel of Destiny. I don't know if anyone remembers that show, but
someone's going to win one of Wayne's books. These are good books too. Serious fishing here. All right, who's going to win?
All right, you ready? You ready for the roll?
Do it.
Right, we totally stole this from Dave Sikorsky. This was the CCA Wheel of Names. All right, here we go for the Wayne Young book. Vince Higgins.
Vince.
Let's see. Vince, if you're still online, shoot Lenny a message. I don't recall if you were on YouTube or Facebook, but reach out to us and get that book out to you.
Congratulations, Vince.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We'd like to thank Annapolis Yacht Sales for sponsoring this episode of Live with Lenny. And I'm sure they're going to have some of, the Stamus. Hopefully, they're at the Bay Bridge Boat Show coming up. And
oh yeah, yep.
So if you're not planning on going to the show, check out AnnapolisYachtSales.com. But definitely check out the Bay Bridge Boat Show. Annapolis Yacht Sales is usually there, and I'm sure they're going to have a Stamus if they have them in stock. And now, Lenny, there's some other exciting news coming up at the Bay Bridge Boat Show. Would you like to share that information?
Oh, you must be talking about the new fishing seminars, the fishing pavilion. We have actually quite a bit going on. The Bay Bridge Boat Show is going to, they are paying some attention to us anglers, which is very cool. I will be doing seminars there, how to, where to fishing seminars. Eric Packard will be on hand to talk about snakehead fishing. He'll be doing some how to snakehead fishing seminars, but we're going to take a slightly different tact. Instead of just doing regular blah, blah, blah seminars, we're going to do our regular blah, blah, blah seminars. And then afterwards, we're going to hang out and we're just going to drink and chit chat with all the anglers who want to just hang out and drink and chit chat, which should be very nice. It'll be kind of like a post-seminar social hour, if you will. So I'm looking forward to it. Now, we probably should mention the dates for the boat show, which I do have written on my calendar. April 21, 22, 23. And I think the 24th is in there too, right? Goes through Sunday.
4-day show, Thursday to Sunday. That's
Yep.
right. And that's at the Bay Bridge Arena, right over the Bay Bridge.
We haven't set the exact speaker schedule yet. That will come. But I think what's likely to happen is I'll probably talk Friday evening. Maybe we'll have Eric talk Saturday evening, and then I'll talk again Sunday, something like that. I think that's probably how it's going to work out. And it should be fun. And I assume you'll be on hand at the boat show too, so you can be around and join the social hour and talk fishing as well.
I will be there.
Excellent.
All right. Well, see you guys next month, the first Thursday of the month. And if you sign up for our emails, you'll get notified. And also, all the previous episodes are available on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook video tab, so you can watch all the previous, everything that happened last year. It's probably relevant again this year. So, with few variations and changes. So check out the old content and, hop on over to our YouTube channel, subscribe there if you haven't done so. And, a lot of great content and a lot more great content coming at you this year as we try new things. What's your next fishing adventure, by the way? We need to talk. What are you personally doing next? See, I was all wrapped up in pickerel, but I didn't even fish enough as I wanted to. But
I'll be banging on these perch. I mean, I'll be trying to. I want my fresh perch dinner. I have not had it in a long time.
So March, you're looking at perch in March. And now, what about April with the closure? What are you going to do in April?
It'll depend on some part. If that boat comes or not.
Right.
When that boat comes, that will have a pretty radical effect on where and how I'm fishing.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how to answer that yet. I don't know, man. We'll have to see. I don't have any big giant fishing adventures planned at this point.
Well, that's going to have to change.
Yeah, I got a lot of fish for cure trips, which I'm really looking forward to. But man, I hope that boat. Come on.
So what if they're not at the boat show? What are they going to? How are they going to see the seminars if they're not at the show? Are they going to be available online?
I don't know, Zach. You can make that happen.
We'll do our best.
David is currently in New Orleans, and today Instagramophoned a picture of a redfish that literally I had to take off my shirt and change it because I drooled on it.
David Rudo is currently one of the roots of all my envy as I watch him catch redfish every day. Very jealous. And I hope you're going to go down and visit soon. So I hope you he shows you the ropes,
I need to get down there. I need to get down there and check it out.
Good to hear from you, David. And thanks again, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Enjoy.